Cloudcast Media.
Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and we are so pleased to have in the studio with us today Jimmy Figueroa. He's the Executive Director of Operation Hope North County. How you doing, Jimmy?
I'm doing well, Drew. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're honored to have you. And joining me is Kamara White. She's going to be a curiosity shipper for Cloudcast Media. And for those listeners know what that means, we don't do internships. We do curiosity ships. So we want those folks. Kamara just had graduated from high school here, and you're going to what school?
St. Martin's University in Washington.
And what's going to be your major?
Communications with emphasis on journalism.
And it's sports journalism, right?
Yes, sports journalism.
That's right. Jimmy, a million years ago, I was a sports writer, and they barely had running water when I was doing it. But so maybe I can give some tips to Kamara, or actually I could probably learn some tips from her as well. So Kamara's going to be listening into some of our podcasts moving forward before she heads out to college on it.
Yes.
Talk about Operation Hope North County. What's the mission?
Yes, Operation Hope North County was created in 2003, and we are a homeless shelter for families with children and single women. And our goal is to help families reclaim their lives and get them back into independence.
Right. And so is it solely working with single women? Is that correct?
No, it's families with children and single women.
Gotcha. So okay, single women or families with children. That's right.
Correct.
And you've been doing this since when, you said?
2003.
Okay, 2003. And we all know that the homeless situation in San Diego County is a challenge, to say the least. One of our frequent guests, and I'm not sure if you know him, great guy, great supporter of our Spotlight show, is Deacon Jim Vargas, who runs Father Joe's Villages. I
haven't met the deacon.
Yeah.
But I've heard of the great work that he's been doing in the community for such a long time.
He's unbelievable. Yeah. He really is unbelievable on this. So talk about, is your location, are you in Oceanside?
No, so Operation Hope North County was essentially, in 2003, we occupied a warehouse off Orange Street off of Santa Fe. And then in 2013, we got the opportunity to purchase an Old Vista Community Clinic. And we redid the clinic and made our shelter there. At the time, it was a winter shelter. In 2016, we converted to a year-round shelter. But it is located in Vista. But our number one service population at the moment is Escondido.
Really?
Where residents are coming from. Number two is Oceanside, then Vista.
So how many folks do you service each year? And are some of these residential as well, or are they just during the day? How does that work?
So last year, we serviced 188 individuals. That number has declined because our shelter allows folks to be with us up to 90 days.
Nice.
And the goal is to get them back into housing.
Right.
But the rise of inflation, the rise of the cost of living and wages not keeping up with that, this year, folks were staying with us for about 120 days. That's how long it was taking them to graduate the program.
Right.
And so we served a little bit less number this year, but it was due to just the rise of rental costs and the deposits. But no, so residents, our program is structured to help them get back into independence. So most of our families have children that are either K through 12.
Right.
And so a lot of the families that we have come to us with jobs. And so they're already working and their kids are already enrolled in our local schools. We're talking about our neighbors.
Right.
And so during the day, the majority of the residents are not at the shelter. They're either at work, they're at school, and in the evening we have programming. And so financial literacy, parenting classes, housing navigation, how to understand the housing market from a renter standpoint, and how to get those resources.
Yeah, and listen, anybody who's spent any time in San Diego County knows it is on the rise.
Yeah.
It's probably on the rise in every parts of the county. We know it is in downtown, San Diego. And, you know, I think what's something that most people don't realize, Jimmy, maybe you can address this. You hit the nail on the head. These are folks that are working.
Yeah.
And, you know, but it's not inexpensive to live in San Diego County, and you maybe be one paycheck away from being in your car, and then 2 paychecks away from losing that car, correct?
Correct. And, you know, the recent studies have shown that income instability is the number one cause for homelessness right now in California. Here in our region, the Regional Task Force on Homelessness provides reports monthly, and every month it keeps showing the increase of folks experiencing homelessness for the first time, and how much that number is continuing to climb, and the amount of affordable housing doesn't meet that need.
Right.
And so at Operation Hope North County, that's what we have. A lot of our folks at the shelter are experiencing homelessness for the first time for income instability, or for other various factors, and some of that can be domestic violence. They're fleeing from something, you know, horrible, and they became homeless because of it.
Yeah, you know, one of our frequent guests on the show, we have a lot of them that focus in that area. Homestart's one of them, and so forth. You know Homestart very well, and you know, and there is a connection sometimes between the two. Exactly, some child abuse and neglect, or elderly abuse and neglect, and so forth. And you know, talk a little bit about just on the psyche of somebody who is now entering homelessness for the first time. You know, they probably in their life say, that won't happen to me. But things do happen to people.
Yeah. And I think, you know, we have a we stabilize our guests when they first come to the shelter. And a lot of that is just making sure that they understand that they have support. A lot of these families were living in their car. Right. And we've heard stories of a single mom, and I'll say this: most of our adults at the shelter are single parents, single dad, single mom. Right. Sometimes it's even grandparents who have custody, but it's usually a single parent with little ones. And I remember when I first got there was a single mom who was just so thankful to be in a safe environment, because she explained to us that it was just difficult when in the middle of the night they're in a Walmart parking lot and one of the kids has to use the bathroom, and everyone has to get out of the car, go use the bathroom, and then they have to find another parking lot that is safe, and just not, you know, you're sleep deprived as a parent. The trauma of that entire experience. Recently we had a family move in, and you know, one of the case managers comes to the office and she's crying, and she was like, you know, I just had a moment. And I said, what happened? And she said, I was showing one of the families their room, because they just got into the shelter, and they have a little daughter, and she screamed and she said, a bed. And she went and jumped on the bed. And, you know, this is a family that parents are working, and they just couldn't afford, and they're from our community. They just got priced out. But for a kid to experience that, again, these are our neighbors.
Well, and I think the whole point in all of this, we're chatting with Jimmy Figueroa. He's the Executive Director of Operation Hope in North County. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 17th year in these beautiful Mission-Fed studios in Scripps Ranch. Mission-Fed's been doing terrific things for our community for more than 60 years itself. Joined by Kamara White. She'll be doing a curiosity ship for Cloudcast Media. But it talks about human nature on, somehow, somewhere we lost the empathy gene on this. And if you can't be touched by that story, we all need to get to this, and everyone needs a hand on this. Kamara, when you were in school, I'm sure you had to do a lot of community things. Did you work with the homeless at all?
I did, yeah. I was actually part of a mental wellness club, and we did donations to homeless shelters and teen, youth, mental health shelters as well, yeah.
Yeah, you brought up a very, very good point. Listen, you can't turn around anywhere, and it's been going on not since the pandemic, before the pandemic, mental health, Mm-hmm. Do you offer services in that area, Jimmy?
We offer case management, but the majority of our case management, and it is required, so case management is required at our shelter.
Yeah.
But the majority of our case management, because the families are with us from 90 to 120 days, it's centered around getting them back into housing.
Right.
And so developing better budgeting habits. We also, our case management also ties into parenting. But one of the things that our case managers do, because we only have families with us for a limited time, is that there's so many great resources in North County. One Safe Place is one of them, out of San Marcos with the district attorney's office. So what we do is provide warm handoffs to longer lasting services. And a lot of that is towards mental health, because our families need wraparound services to prevent them from becoming homeless again, but also to service their children, because if they're coming from a domestic violence situation, the kids now have been exposed to a lot. And you want to be able to get them the treatment that they need as well.
Yeah, and when you talk to the folks that deal in that area, child abuse and child neglect, foster programs, whether it's Promises to Kids or Just in Time for Foster Youth, and we got some great organizations that work in this community, and I'm sure you collaborate with a bunch of them. And, just knowing that these kids have been in these situations, trust is the biggest factor. Adults have let them down, and so forth. That's why coming to a safe haven like yours is just so critical in that area. We come back from break. I want to talk about some of the services that you offer.
Okay.
Talk about food insecurity. That is a huge issue even before the pandemic and so forth. What type of educational resources? You talked about some financial literacy. Are there activities for the kids that they can do? We're sitting next to someone who's going to be a sports broadcaster, and probably and hopefully not too far down the road in that area. So we think about that aspect as well when we return with Jimmy Figueroa. He's the Executive Director of Operation Hope North County. I'm Drew Schlosberg, and you're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We're in the longest running community podcast in the nation, now in our 17th year, in these beautiful Scripps Ranch Mission Fed studios in Scripps Ranch, and joined by Kamara White, going to be talking a little bit about her journey as she starts her freshman year in college as well, and then maybe some advice on how we can help you, support you, and lift that when we return from this short break.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg, and you're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 17th year in the beautiful Mission Fed studios here in Scripps Ranch. Mission Federal has been doing great things in our community for more than 60 years. Honored to have on the show with us today Jimmy Figueroa. He's the Executive Director of Operation Hope in North County, and joining me is my curiosity ship colleague, Kamara White. Just graduated from Mount Carmel High School in Rancho Penasquitos. Will be going to St. Martin's up in Washington. Will be a communications major on scholarship in volleyball. So congratulations to you. That's very exciting. Did you play sports in high school, Jimmy?
I grew up playing basketball. I played travel basketball. Part of my journey is I did have a lot of challenges, growing up, and hence is how I got into nonprofit work, helping giving back to my community. So unfortunately, I didn't get the opportunity to extend my basketball dreams. But I was a shooting guard.
Nice.
I played quite a bit of basketball growing up.
That's right. Well, you're still young. You can still make that NBA team. Somewhere down the road. Maybe a travel scout on that. We were talking right before break about some of the services that you offer in food insecurity. Talk about both of those.
Yeah. So right before the pandemic, Operation Hope and you mentioned this, the human element,
right.
and when we ask the clients that we serve, what was the most impactful thing about, their services through Operation Hope, and they always say the support that they got from the staff. It goes back to the human element, the shelter and the support and the encouragement, the hope that they got from the staff. And that report is established. So when after they get housing, well, they're still coming back to the case managers and the staff to ask for other assistance. And one of the things that kept coming up was food insecurity. And so we launched our Pantry of Hope right before the pandemic. And at that time, it was created specifically to serve our graduate families. Well, word got out, and we're also located in a part of Vista that has a lot of low-income residents who are food insecure. And so now our Pantry of Hope that was specifically designed initially for our graduate families, now is serving over 100 families a week in our community. And it's our way to prevent homelessness, because that for us, one of the things that we've learned too is that certain families are only $150, $200, $300 away from being homeless. And so if we can provide food for them, then that's one way that we can prevent folks from needing our shelter.
Yeah, and there are a lot of groups. I worked for the San Diego Union Tribune for about 1 billion years, and one of the organizations that I would work with, we formed our own shoe fund in 1935 during the Depression. It's called the Union Tribune Shoe Fund. And when we would work with groups like yours or the food bank, we'd say, hey, why don't we throw some shoes in, with this as well? And I encourage you to call the Union Tribune. They do still have that shoe fund. It's been going on again since 1935, and they provide vouchers or some monies for people to buy those shoes. And to your point, so if you get a voucher that's worth $40, that's $40 you're not spending on food.
Absolutely.
And it helps in that area as well on this. So most people don't realize in San Diego we got a lot of folks that are in great need. I'm not sure why they don't realize that. How many kids live here that have never been to the beach? How many have never been to the mountains? How many people have never been to a Padre game or never been to maybe even a high school volleyball game in that area? And there's a lot of them in this area. That's why everyone just needs to just reach out. So talk about volunteerism. What can our listeners do from a volunteer aspect to help you?
Yeah, so Operation Hope North County wouldn't exist without our volunteers. We have a very short, small staff, and we operate, 24/7, 365 days out of the year.
Right.
But on a yearly basis, we have about 150 to 200 volunteers that give their time, their talent, their treasures to help our families at the shelter. And so we can always use volunteers on the pantry side. Like I said, right now we're serving over 100 families a week through the pantry. We also have a boutique. And that's for our families at the shelter, where they're able to come and get clothes, get shoes.
Nice.
It's important to have your self-esteem and your sense of dignity. And a pair of shoes can do that. Right. And so,
100%.
So we have those services at the shelter. We do have a youth program, and we can always use help with our K through 12 students, youth at the program, but also with our little ones. We have a lot of toddlers at the program. One of the things that I tell folks all the time is that if you come to the shelter in the evenings, what you're going to see is children, and mainly children. We usually, our total population is usually between 65 and 70% children at the shelter. And so we can always use more help with our kids, but also with that, our staff is based around direct services. But we do not have a landscaping team. We don't have a maintenance team, and all that is done through volunteers.
Right. You don't want me on that maintenance team. I can screw it in the light bulb.
But also one last thing, meal providers as well. When families are at our shelter, we have, we provide them all the toiletries. We have a laundry room, but then we provide dinners, and that's a way for our community to come and provide the dinner. Right. And we try to get those supported by faith-based communities, civic groups, corporations. So that's another way to get involved.
Right, I imagine. Kamara, you got a question for Jimmy?
Yeah. What is one of the most significant challenges today for those that you serve?
I think one of the things that we're experiencing, especially this year, is one of the things of our program, it's a requirement, is having our guests save 30% of each check that they get to have a deposit for them when they move out for housing, and that deposit number continues to rise in our region.
Right.
And so hence is why families are needing to stay with us a little bit longer, because it is so expensive to rent. And so that's a big challenge that we're seeing. And also getting them a job that's a livable wage as well. Again, it just goes back to basic needs. And it's becoming, it's just harder and harder for our families.
Well, it really is, and what you folks do when you do some of the training and all that business, and you focus on needs versus wants, and these folks at the need stage, listen, I need to have shelter, I need to have clothing, I need to have food, or ball game is over. You know, it'd be nice to have that nice, I guess 50-inch TV or whatever, but that's not quite as important of a need in this aspect of it. On the website, are there opportunities for people to drop off types of things, furniture or other types of clothing? Or obviously you don't want people to give them the ratty old clothes or broken furniture, of course.
Correct. We ask for lightly worn clothes,
right? Because
the majority of our folks at the shelter are experiencing homelessness for the first time,
right?
And so they do have, some of them come to us with storage units, and they have some other stuff in there. Some of them have very limited. So what's in their car is what they have. As far as furniture, the space that we have to store furniture, we only have about a 1,200 square foot space. So for us, we sometimes ask folks, can you just hold on to it for like a couple weeks, because we have this person exiting,
right?
And we would like to make that transition, pretty efficient and quick, versus us keeping it in our small space. But on our website, we do have links for all of our contact information, ways to give, ways to volunteer, and ways to get involved.
Right. We're chatting with Jimmy Figueroa. He's the Executive Director of Operation Hope North County. I'm Drew Schlosberg, as you're listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest-running community podcast, broadcast here in beautiful Mission-Fed Studios on Scripps Ranch. Mission Federal has been a great community leader for more than 60 years, joined by my colleague, Comrade White. She is a curiosity shipper, just graduated from Mount Carmel. Will be attending St. Martin's in Washington on a volleyball scholarship as she majors in communication in that area. I think there's always time for people to volunteer. And one of the things that's sort of a common refrain on this show, and Comrade, you'll hear it as you do this for more than one time, several weeks down the road, there's no such thing as too little of a time to volunteer. Yeah. You'll take volunteers if they can only give 2 hours a week. Beautiful. That is 2 hours that we didn't have before. And the same thing with money. I tell people, listen with the food bank numbers, $1 buys 5 meals. $5 buys 25 meals. So if you don't think your $5 is helping, it is. Talk about that, Jimmy.
Yeah. So for us, you're exactly right. Well, if you can volunteer 1 hour a week, we'll take it.
Right.
And for us to house a family for one night at our shelter is $69 to house one person at our shelter, $69 a day. And so even if you look at that, it's like $2. Can you give $2 a day?
That's right.
Even provide a meal, anything that can be given. For us, it's especially for our nonprofit. We only receive about 30% of our budget comes from local government support.
Right.
So the other 70% we have to raise. So we have folks that give to us $10 a month, $5 a month. But it all makes it all helps. It all helps to housing a family and helping with food insecurity.
Right, and I think, Kamar, you did some volunteering as well, and talk about that from a young person's perspective. When you do that, it's sort of it's infectious. You want to do it more, correct?
Yeah, for me, I think that, like you said earlier, the empathy gene. Being in high school, some people have, some people don't, or just in general. And I think that being around and volunteering, I think for me at least, in my experience, it just gave different perspective. You're grateful to be there, but you're also grateful for the stuff you have. So I think just also the club that I was in was just a great club. So for me, it was a great experience. Yeah.
And once you establish that, habit of giving at a young age, you're going to give when you're in your 20s and 30s and 40s, and it doesn't stop. Are your parents volunteers also in different things?
Yeah. When I was younger, they would take me to Father Joe's and stuff. So
yeah, and see, that's where it happens, you know, and you know this. I'm preaching to the congregation on this thing, and all just becomes a habit, like reading. You know, you watch your parents read, you're going to read into that aspect at all. So, Jimmy, what can our listeners do? We talked about volunteering. Obviously, contributions are critical. What else can they do?
I think for us is if there's something, you know, check out our website, check out our social media. If there's anything in there that pulls at the heartstrings, or that, you know, I was speaking at a chamber, an Oceanside chamber, and there was an individual there after the meeting came to me and said, "Hey, I grew up in a shelter," and he has a drainage company, and he said, "If you guys ever need any help, you know, that I can provide, I will come and do it, you know, in kind service." And sure enough, about a month later, we did, and he came out with, you know, his staff, and something that would have probably cost us $2,000-$3,000. They did, and you know, he grew up in North County shelters as a kid, and for him, he said, I don't have the money to give, but I can give my time, and I have the tools. And so there's always things, you know, if anyone wants to get involved, I would just encourage them to check out our website, but yeah, anything from meal providers, volunteers, everything we can use.
But that's such a great example. Yeah. So here's this humble guy that's been in shelters, right?
Yeah.
And I can't give anything, but he just gave $3,000 worth of your time. You know how many meals that bought? Do you know how many clothes we could buy with the fact that we don't have to take it out of our budget because of that? And everyone's got a skill set.
Yeah.
You know, well, maybe I'm not sure if I have one, but I mean, a lot of people have those skill sets where if you don't think you can help, oh yeah, you can. If you're a cabinet maker, if you know how to make things, if you know how to repair things, if you know how to do X, Y, and Z on that. Shout out the website so people can get engaged with
OperationHopeShelter.org.
Very, very good. Any final comments?
Just thankful to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about our shelter and our services.
So promise me the next time you come on, if you can bring in someone that's benefited from your services, if it's someone that's at your shelter, we don't want to break any privacy laws. That's not our goal, but we have people that I know Father Joseph Villages and Deacon Jim will bring in folks that have benefited from it. We all know that's the street cred with it. So we'd love to have you make a return appearance and bring someone who's benefiting.
I would love to, and you know, one of the things that I get so encouraged from being at the shelter is that sometimes I go there and I'll see a mom outside on one of the picnic tables doing her homework, who's in college. And the staff are there playing with her kids while she's studying. Or sometimes she has to take a virtual test, and the staff will, you know, play with the kids while she's taking a test. And you're seeing our community at work helping each other. And I would love to bring someone back to speak about their experience.
And we all know this. I'm sure you experienced it too, you know, Kamara. That is, when you lift up one, you're lifting up more than one. You're lifting up that mom and the kids and the cousins and the aunts and the uncles that all go with that connection on that. It's never lost on me that, you're helping one person, but that one person has about 10 tentacles in this.
And just one quick,
please.
I think a few days ago, I was at the shelter, and we had a new client who was asking one of the staff a few questions about needing assistance with a few things. And one of our clients who's getting ready to exit the program, who's had a very successful stay, is listening. She's next to the staff person, and she responds to the client. She's like, "Don't worry, we'll take care of you. We'll make sure that you get what you need." But the client who had been there for 3 months was saying this to the brand new client, like, "Whatever you need, we'll make sure that we take care of you."
I mean, imagine that multiplied by 1,000 times.
Right.
It's just absolutely terrific. Well, Jimmy, we're going to look forward to having you back on sooner than later, and so we really appreciate you spending some time with us.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure.
You bet. We've been talking to Jimmy Figueroa, the Executive Director of Operation Hope North County. I'm Drew Schlosberg. You've been listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, the nation's longest-running community podcast here in the Mission Fed Studios and Scripps Ranch. And Mission Fed been doing spectacular work for San Diegans for more than 60 years. Honored to have sitting next to me my guest co-host, Kamara White. She'll be doing a curiosity ship at Cloudcast Media. Just graduated from Mount Carmel and Rancho Penasquitas, heading off to St. Martin's in Washington as a volleyball scholarship. And did you enjoy your first interview?
Absolutely.
You did a nice job too, like a pro, right, Jimmy?
She did. She's ready.
Very good. We hope everybody enjoyed the show.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.